What's going on, gardeners? Last year I made one of the biggest announcements I've ever made on my channel. I bought acreage in Florida for a future homestead property. Reactions in the comments went anywhere from, OMG, you're going to be my new neighbor, this is awesome, to WTF, why would you buy land in Florida? It's the worst place ever. If you buy land in Tennessee or Nebraska, nobody bats an eye, but Florida, for some reason, is either like a guiding light on a shining city on a hill or Dante's ninth circle of hell. I may be one of the few people out there that is kind of indifferent towards Florida. I neither love nor hate it, so why did I settle on land in Florida? If homesteading is something that you are interested in, buying land for a future homestead should not be an emotional decision. You should filter things out, and your decisions should be made strictly with logic and what is going to work out for your future goals. So on this video, I'm going to share with you the process I went through for deciding on Florida for my future homestead. I am not in any way, shape, or form trying to convince you to choose Florida. Far from it, there is already way too many people there, in my opinion. I just want to show you the process I went through so you can make an educated decision if this is something that you want for your future.
If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and check out my Amazon store and Spreadshop links in the video description for everything I use in my garden and awesome custom apparel and gear.
In order to make my decision, I made a list of the most important things that would qualify me as having a very successful location for a homestead based on the future goals I wanted to accomplish. And this will come as no surprise to long-term viewers of my channel, but the number one thing on that list was the correct hardiness zone. You see, I wanted to live in a place with warmer winters so I can grow tropicals like mangoes, avocados, starfruit, and dragon fruit while still having enough winter chill to grow figs, persimmons, Asian pears, peaches, and other of the more temperate species that I have grown to love over the years. So this basically limited me to hardiness zones 9B and 10A. And if you're only going to buy land in those hardiness zones, that basically limits you to 4 different states in the continental United States: Arizona, California, Florida, and Texas. Yes, I know that there are technically tiny subtropical pockets of Zone 9B in Georgia, South Carolina, and Louisiana, plus areas of Nevada as well, but Zone 9B in those southern states is very unstable, and the land is mostly confined to barrier islands, which I could never afford, and there is no way I'm moving to Las Vegas. So that's why there were really only 4 states I could reasonably choose from. The second consideration on my list was the price of the land itself, taxes, and the overall cost of living in the area and the state. So California got crossed right off the list. There was no way I was going to move to a location that is significantly more expensive than where I already live. So right away, I was narrowed down to only 3 states. The third consideration was climate. Arizona, Florida, and Texas have dramatically different climates. Now, I wanted to live in Zone 9B or 10A, so if you chose Arizona, you pretty much have to live in the Phoenix area. And spending my entire life on the East Coast, I'm just not familiar with that type of climate. I don't want to live in a hot desert climate and deal with those conditions. I'm not experienced with it. So for that reason, pretty much Arizona got crossed off the list in its entirety. So my choice was really between only 2 states, Florida and Texas. Because Texas is in the center of the country, it has a much more unstable continental type climate than the Florida peninsula. To get winters stable enough to grow all the tropicals that I want to grow, you basically have to live in Corpus Christi or south. Now, the humidity there is absolutely ridiculous, probably worse than anywhere in Florida, and winters are also colder. So growing up on the East Coast, I'm just very familiar with the Florida rainfall patterns and humidity. I'm just really comfortable with that climate, and where I live right now is kind of 90% of the way there already. So I think it would just be a lot easier for me to manage. I know it really well. And the fourth consideration was actually a consideration for my wife, Brittany, not so much me. You see, Brittany loves going scuba diving, so wherever we had to live had to have regular access to sites that we could scuba dive on the regular. People don't know, but Wilmington, North Carolina is actually one of the best places in the continental United States for wreck diving. So we can actually drive down to the marina in Wilmington, and we can take a charter boat 50 minutes to an hour out for a pretty reasonable price and go wreck diving. diving, and she loves that about this area. So wherever we went to had to have similar conveniences. And obviously Florida has the best scuba diving in the continental United States. Where we chose to get land, there are a lot of clear springs that you can go diving in, and you could always take a 3-hour drive down to Palm Beach or Miami or the Florida Keys and stay somewhere overnight and do a little bit of a scuba trip. So there's lots of flexibility there, so that made her happy. So when you create filters and you exclude all of the things that no longer meet the criteria, truly, nowhere else other than Florida was even close. It's almost as if we didn't have a choice when selecting land in Florida. It's really the only place in the entire United States where we met all 4 of our combined requirements. So even if you are a certified Florida hater, you have to admit there are a lot of pros with the lifestyle that comes with living in Florida. I mean, even if you'd never want to live there, you have to admit it can be a pretty good vacation destination. That being said, even if you are a certified Florida lover, you also have to admit it comes with a lot of downsides, and many of you have voiced those downsides to me. These are some of the top concerns. And of course, number 1 on the list is hurricanes. Aren't you concerned about the hurricane threat in Florida? Well, people don't realize this, but I live in Wilmington, North Carolina, and Wilmington, North Carolina has a more frequent return rate for hurricanes and tropical storms than most areas in Florida. We're really in a bad path, and we get bitten 2 to 3 times every single year by something. It is true that the threat of a major hurricane is much greater in Florida. However, that being said, we specifically chose north central Florida and a significant amount inland. It's an area that pretty much has never gotten hit with a direct hit from a hurricane. They pretty much only get glancing blows when the storms come from the west coast, and then they graze over them. Now, that being said, that area did get clipped twice this year, so obviously I'm still going to be dealing with hurricanes, but we got clipped 3 or 4 times, so they still got hit with half the frequency that we got hit. So moving down there, it's not really going to be anything worse than I'm dealing with now. If anything, the frequency will be a little bit lower, and since I will have a property that I can actually develop, I hope to set myself up in such a way that I can have windbreaks and things in place to help mitigate any damage from storms. Concern number 2 is a biggie: heat and humidity. Yes, it is definitely true that Florida is hotter and more humid where we live now. I just went down there in September. It started to cool off here, and it was still absolutely terrible there. I almost died planting a bunch of trees at my homestead property. I went through so much water. It was terrible. But I will say this: the heat and humidity period is only about 2 to 3 weeks earlier in the spring, and it ends about 2 weeks to 3 weeks later than it does right here. So you only get the heat and humidity for a combined total about a month longer than where I already live. And while it will be a little bit worse during the day, if I'm living a homestead lifestyle, I will finally be able to kick the full-time job, and I can wake up with the sun, do the work early, call it quits at 10 a.m., spend the days indoors in the air conditioning, and go back outside at 4. I will be able to afford myself that lifestyle. So I am not that concerned about the additional heat and humidity. It's really not that much worse than what I deal with here. However, the winters will be substantially better. The little bit of added stress in the summer that I'll have to deal with is nothing compared to the headache I will save to not have to cover up my plants 20 to 25 different nights every single year. I'll only have to do it 2 or 3 times. So for a little bit of added stress in the summer, I will have a massive break in the winter. Reason number 3, are you concerned about the thunderstorms and the torrential rainfall? No, absolutely not. People do not understand how much rain we get here in Wilmington, North Carolina. The region of Florida that we selected not only has less days with measurable precipitation each year than we get, but they average about 10 to 15 inches less rain than we get here. We get way horrible rain here. So where this place is in Florida, I've looked at all the airport records, it is not as bad. Anything can happen in a given year, but over a 10-year period, it's considerably drier there, and I am looking forward to that. Concern number 4, insect pests. Ugh, bugs. Florida has so many bugs. How are you going to deal with that? Well, do you know where else has a lot of bugs? The swamps of southeastern coastal North Carolina. We just went to Florida in September for a week. I did not encounter one mosquito, one gnat, nothing. And I went to the property and I was there all day. The beaches were clear. It was great. I got home. We had a horrible 3-week-long plague of mosquitoes where you could not even go outside. It ruined the perfect late September, early October weather. You couldn't go out to the mailbox without getting eaten alive. So it's definitely not worse than what I'm dealing with here. And to the people that'll say, yeah, well, Florida has bugs all throughout the winter too. We do here as well. As soon as we get a warm week, which we get 2 weeks every single month in the winter, the bugs come right back out. So I'm prepared for that, trust me. Concern number 5 is an interesting one. Isn't Florida going through a homeowners insurance crisis where people can't even insure their homes anymore? It's so outrageously expensive. And the answer to that question is yes, but it is highly regional. You see, people in Florida, when they relocate there, they want to be close to the beautiful Florida beaches. And everybody clusters within a few miles of the coastline. And that's where you get all the storms, that's where you get all the storm surge, the wind damage, and as a result, the premiums there, yes, it's true, are in many areas at crisis level, and people can't even afford to insure their homes anymore. But that is why I chose North Central Florida. If you're willing to live 45 minutes to an hour away from the beach and not have that immediate beach access, rates drop dramatically. In fact, I was talking to my who will be my future next door neighbors. Well, their house is like a palace compared to mine. It's absolutely beautiful, and they pay less for homeowners insurance than I pay here in Wilmington, North Carolina. So if you're willing to give up that immediate beach access and get some land out in the sticks that you may have to drive an hour to the beach, well, you won't have to pay those incredibly high insurance rates in most cases. Of course, please do your own research. There are plenty of resources out there that will show you the cost of insurance in a given area for any state, and Florida has really good records for this. So do your own research if you want land in Florida or anywhere else, but the insurance crisis is regional. It is not statewide. So that right there is why I decided to choose Florida as my site for a future homestead. It's not really because I have any affinity or dramatic love for the state of Florida. It's just because it is the place that checked all the boxes, and it will be the best for our future goals, for both what I want to do with a homestead, for what we both want to do as husband and wife for recreation, and it's generally a great home base as well for vacations. Being down in Florida, you can hop down to the Caribbean pretty easily and pretty cheaply if you like that kind of vacation. So, that was a little minor consideration as well. Now, please keep in mind that all these criteria are very individual to me. 99% of people aren't going to have those types of criteria. I'm not trying to convince you to move to Florida. If anything, I would like less people to move to Florida, to be completely honest with you, because the population density is just getting very high, and nobody wants to live in a high population density area. But my point is that I just want to show you the process I went through for making these decisions. Make these decisions logically. Make a list of the things that are the most important to you, and start filtering out locations that aren't going to be able to meet those criteria. Because at the end of the day, if you put your emotions aside and you really focus on the things that you want long term, it makes it a lot easier to make a decision. So here we are. It is only November 30th in southeastern North Carolina, and we're going to have yet another bitterly cold night in the mid to low 20s, and I have to turn the lights on my sensitive trees again so they don't get killed in the freezing temperature. I have to say, these are not requirements that most normal people have when they move to a place, but for me, it is very important. So it is very important to know yourself and your future goals, and if you want to start a homestead of your own, make sure the land you buy fits the criteria that can help you accomplish those goals. So everybody, I sure hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and please ring that notification bell so you can be notified when I release more videos like these. If you're curious about any of the products that I use in real life in my garden, they are all linked down in my Amazon storefront link in the video description. So expand the video description, click on the Amazon storefront link, and you'll see everything I use in real life. And while you're down there, please check out my spread shop for custom merch if you want to support the channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see all of you again on the next video. This looks like an interesting video. 42 wolves howling. I wonder, I think it's working, fellas. You're so sweet there. You're so sweet.